Hi. I think most people would agree that makeup has the power to transform anybody who's wearing it, and that's particularly true for older women. My name is Trisha and I'm founder and MD of Look Fabulous Forever, and we have a range of makeup specifically formulated for older faces, eyes and lips. This video is going to show you how to apply makeup so that you end up looking prettier, younger and altogether more fabulous. I hope you enjoy it. Our model for this video is Caroline, and Linda will be our makeup artist. So the first challenge that we have on an older face is to make sure that the skin tone is really nice and even. So what Linda's doing here is she's mixing the Fabulous base and the prime together in order to create this unified effect on Caroline's face. Mixing the base and prime together is actually a really good way to apply it because A, it saves time, and B, the two products together work brilliantly to smooth out the skin, make sure the makeup lasts longer, but generally achieve a much more, as I said, unified skin tone and finished effect. So using a brush and just working that product into Caroline's skin rather than onto it, you'll see that Linda is just building up the colour and ensuring that it's evenly applied. So when I talk about evenness of skin tone, I'm really saying that skin over time stops being a bit, you think of a baby's skin, it's absolutely perfect. There are very unlikely to be blemishes or age spots or any of the other things that we get as we get older. And what you're doing with base is you're really improving the whole effect of the skin so that when we look at the face, it just looks fresher and generally better. When you're at home, you may not bother to use a brush all the time, but if you do use a brush, you get a much better, more professional finished effect. As you can see, Linda is using a combination of the brush and then just using her fingers to make sure that the product is applied evenly. So the next product that Linda's going to use on Caroline is our Fabulous Light. So using the click pen to push product down onto the integrated brush, Linda is applying this onto the top of Caroline's cheekbones. Now the effect of a highlighter is to draw attention to areas that you want to draw attention to. And because we have bones in our face, brow bones, cheekbones and so on, putting some highlighter onto those areas actually makes the face look prettier and softer. It's also true that a highlighter is useful when you're older on top of your base to create a much more dewy effect because it's reflecting the light. So it stops that sort of heavy, dull, matte, caked on effect that you can get with some makeup, and just ensures that the whole finished effect is a lot lighter and prettier. So next, Linda is going to apply some concealer. This is particularly useful when you're older because you may have areas that need more help than you've given with the base. So any areas that you think just need to be covered better. So here Linda is putting it around the base of Caroline's nose, just patting it in, using concealer brush 4 to do that. So what you need to do is look in the mirror and be really honest and see if you've got any patches or areas that you think could be camouflaged more effectively. The next thing we're going to do is look at Caroline's eyebrows. Caroline's eyebrows are actually a lovely shape and you can see them quite clearly. Sometimes as we age, our eyebrows start to fade and they lose colour. They also become straggly and it's quite difficult then to know what to do with them. Some people are quite reluctant to pluck out the straggly hairs that they've got because they think, well, I haven't got very much in the way of eyebrows left, and if I pluck out these straggly hairs, I'm going to have no eyebrows left at all. But if you've got something like our brow shape, which you can see is a very, very fine brush, and you shake it up, and it is a kind of liquid paint. And what you can do, a bit like a portrait painter, you can create the effect, the illusion, if you like, of individual brow hair. And this is a lot more forgiving on an older face than using something hard like a pencil or something smudgy like a shadow. So this is very, very effective. And what it does, it just adds a bit of colour, density, and a more finished effect to the brows. The colour of the brow shape is actually a very dark brown, and you might think that was completely inappropriate if you've got grey hair or blonde like Caroline. But in fact, you can use it lightly or more darkly depending on the colour of your brows. My daughter Susie is blonde and she absolutely loves our brow shape. It works really well on her. So we've started to put some definition back into Caroline's face and we've evened out the skin tone. And the next thing we're going to do is to make her eyes look a lot better and a lot bigger. And I'm going to start with the eye primer. Now the eye primer is very, very useful, just like face prime, which makes your makeup last longer and look better. So does eye primer. And older eyelids can be quite discoloured, so what this does, because it's flesh coloured, is it neutralises any discoloration that you have and just makes sure that your eye makeup goes on really beautifully on top. So you apply it with a sponge applicator, let it dry, and then you're ready to put any colour on top that you want to apply, shadows or lid colours. We're going to use 2 shadows on Caroline today. First of all, we're going to use our cream shadow. So this is a lighter colour using our shadow brush 7. And Linda is going to apply this over the entire lid on both of Caroline's eyes. So the next thing that Linda is going to do, she's going to use our eye shade Forest, which is a very, very dark green. This will be perfect on Caroline because she's warm toned and with her eye colour. So Linda has wet it and she's using our new wedge shape brush, which is brush number 8, in order to create an eye line along the edge of Caroline's lashes. So when you're doing this on yourself, the important thing is to rest the brush on your eyelashes, just so that you can draw a very fine line. What we're doing with this, we're just creating a thickening of the lashes. And that's really the effect of an eyeliner. So you can see that what Linda's doing there is she's just building up so that the colour is slightly more intense, but all the time pushing that product into the base of the lashes. That's really, really important. Now the next thing that Linda's going to do is using the same product, which is Forest Eye Shade, and she's going to use it dry this time, so it's quite versatile. So using it much more as a traditional shadow, and putting the colour on the outer edge of Caroline's eye. So the effect that Linda's creating here is to make the eyes look bigger. And you can see that where she's put it is almost in a V shape. Now, whenever you apply eyeshade, you need to blend it really well, no hard edges. And so Linda's taken a clean brush and she's just working that product into the eyelid. So you can see quite clearly here what Linda's doing. She's taking the shadow above the eye socket line and down, as I said, into a V shape onto the eyelid, and then using the clean brush just to blend that in. And you can also see with Caroline's eyes closed, that's it, just exactly where that product has gone. So what Linda's doing now is she's just taking some of that shadow into the under eye area. Only on the outer corners, so not a heavy dark line. I think when you're older, creating the illusion of bigger, more open eyes is a question of a lightness of touch. That's why these colours are so perfect on Caroline. So we're not using black, we're not using really dark brown, but the effect is really pretty. And it's definitely enhancing her eyes, making them look bigger, defining them better, but creating a much, much prettier effect at the end. So the next thing we're going to do is curl Caroline's eyelashes. Eyelash curlers are brilliant when you're older because my eyelashes have become shorter as I've aged, and they tend to be straighter. And of course what you can do with eyelash curlers is that you can get that curl back, and the effect is that your lashes then curl away from your eyes, and when you put your mascara on they look particularly gorgeous. Quite easy to do. There is a technique involved in doing it, but once you've mastered the technique it's quite straightforward, and you just pump the curlers onto the lashes as you've seen Linda do there, and that really has a great effect. So we're ready now to apply the fabulous lash and just create that finished effect for Caroline's eye makeup. So starting with the bottom lashes, even if you haven't got very much in the way of bottom lashes, put some mascara on them because they will look better. And just using the end of the brush, work the mascara onto the lashes. And if you've put mascara on the bottom lashes and then you put it on the top lashes, the effect is to open the eye up, and ultimately the eyes just look much bigger. Our mascara is thickening because all mascaras thicken. You're adding an extra layer to your lashes, but it doesn't have lengthening filaments in it. You may say, why didn't you choose one with lengthening filaments in? Well, the reason was very simple. I think that if you're not careful when you're older, if you use mascaras which make your eyelashes very, very stiff and unreal looking, it actually is quite aging. So when you've got this mascara on, your eyelashes still feel quite bendy and supple and pliable, so they look real, but they look better because they're thicker and you've got a much more defined effect. I think if I was marooned on a desert island, I'd quite like to have mascara available, which sounds incredibly vain, like why would I bother? But mascara just makes so much difference to your eyes. Mascara and a lippy, which could double up as a cheek colour, would be enough to await rescue. Lovely, looking good. So next product is lip primer. So this is the third primer that we've used on Caroline, and again this is something when you're older really helps with the lipstick to stay put. The problem with an older mouth is that it often has lines and wrinkles around it. Caroline doesn't have many lines or wrinkles around her mouth, but it is a problem that people have. And what you can do with lip primer is stop the lipstick moving beyond the mouth, going where you don't want it to go. So you put it on, you allow it to dry, which takes a few seconds, it's quite quick. And make sure you put it on the outer edges of the lips. It's not a balm, it's a primer. So it's really used to seal the edges of the lips. And the final thing we're going to do with the lips is just to add some lipstick. And the colour we're going to use on Caroline is Foxy Lady. Because Caroline has such warm toned skin, this is a perfect colour for her. I love the moment in a makeover when I add the lipstick, and Linda's also going to add a blusher. These 2 points of colour on her face are incredibly important. We saw at the beginning how important it is to even out the skin tone, and that means that you unify the way the skin looks, but then the skin doesn't have very much definition to it. So by adding lip colour and then checking in the mirror to see how much blush you need, you're really adding this life and almost energy to the face with the colour that you choose. And these warm toned colours that we're going to put on Caroline are absolutely perfect for her. So very nearly done. And the final thing is going to be peach cream blush. And where Linda is going to put it, quite high up on the cheekbones, not the apples of the cheeks, but in an arc of colour underneath where you put the light earlier on. Blush is incredibly important when you're older because it really does restore some of the life and, as I said, energy and healthiness really to the way that you look. To me, it's an instant prettifier, especially if it's got a pinky tone to it. So both our blushes, Rosy Glow and Peach Cream, do have this pink tone. This one has a peachy pink tone, but it is very, very important that you don't put oranges and browns onto your cheeks when you're older. It can make you look quite gaunt and haggard, whereas pinky tones just make all the difference to the finished effect. With the blusher that we have, it's a cream to powder formulation, so when you've applied it with your fingers, if you feel that it needs any kind of blending, you can actually do that with a brush. So I think we're there. That's a really lovely finished effect. I hope you'll agree that Caroline just looks gorgeous. So we've really brought her face to life with makeup, and the finished effect is delightful.